Good afternoon and welcome to the Savage Chamber of Commerce Meet the City Council Candidate Forum. Thank you all for being here. My name is Heather Prosky and I'm the president of the Savage Chamber of Commerce. I would like to extend a welcome and a thank you to all 5 of our City Council candidates, Jason Blum, Brian Ewald, Matt Johnson, Christine Kelly, and Bill Marks. Thank you all for being here. Well, obviously, this is our City Council forum, and coming up, 27 days until Election Day, so we're definitely interested in hearing what you have to say about running for your candidate position. And I'm going to also introduce my moderator for the day, Tom Hutchinson from Eastland Hutchinson, right here in Savage. That's a mouthful. So I'm going to turn over the reins and say thank you to all of you for being here and give you a little bit of time to introduce yourselves and your platform that you're running on.
Thank you, Heather. Thank you. Good afternoon, candidates. Welcome to this afternoon's forum. Thank you for taking the time to be here. We'll have a format where we ask you several questions. Each one of you will have a chance to independently comment. I'd like you to keep your comments to about roughly 2 minutes each because we'd like to keep this to about an hour. And if we go much more than that, it'll be hard to do that. So why don't we just start at the beginning here, have each of you introduce yourselves again to the voters and tell us whether or not you're the incumbent and tell us 1 or 2 things about your platform that you're proposing to propose for the city. So we'll start with Mr. Blum.
Mr. Blum. Well, hi, everyone. I want to take the chance to thank the Chamber of Commerce for hosting us and giving us this opportunity. My name's Jason Blum. I'm 43 and lived in Savage the last 17 years or so. Married with 2 wonderful twins, almost 5.5 years old, Nolan and Charlotte. I grew up in the western suburbs, graduated from Minnetonka High School, and obtained a bachelor's degree in finance from Metropolitan State University. In my professional career, I have been in the salon industry for the past 20 or so years, to give you an idea of where I'm coming from. I currently am with a small franchise company called Snippets Haircuts for Kids, and we are based in Burnsville. Why I'm currently not a member of the City Council, why I'm running this year is to bring a more proactive and transparent style to local governing, to engage with the citizens and not to wait for them to come to us, but that I will come to you. Whether you have ideas for the city, I think the best ideas come from the residents, not from necessarily the local leaders all the time or city employees. Whether it's an idea you have that is big or small, I'd love to hear it. If there's a complaint you have or concern with the city, that's brought to attention, and we don't wait for you to come to us, that we're out there actively engaging with you. That's where I'm coming from. Thank you for the opportunity, and look forward to meeting all of you soon.
Thank you, Mr. Blum. And as Mr. Blum has included his Why Am I Running platform, I'd like you all to do that because that would essentially be our first question. So a little bit of bio like Mr. Blum did, and then why are you running, sort of why in a nutshell, if you will. So Mr. Ewald?
Ewald.
Ewald, excuse me.
Yeah, it's old German. But anyway, I've been a resident of Savage since 2006. My 3 kids here grew up. I still have a daughter in high school, but my other 2 are out of high school. I've been married for 23 years. My wife grew up in Burnsville, so we know the area well. In professional life, I'm an IT project manager dealing with software development, especially on large data migrations and e-commerce stuff. My background here, I've been involved in the community basically since I moved here, first with my wife through Mom's Club, and then with the Scouts for almost a dozen years, as well as I was president of Harriet Bishop PTO for 2 years and involved with them for several years. And I took part in some of the planning for the Savage City Service Day. So I'm very much involved with the community, want to stay involved with the community, want to become an incumbent, which I am not right now. But I feel that the city is doing a good job, but can do a better job looking forward. how has technology, especially now with COVID, affected people? How can city services give better value to its citizens? How are the projects being planned out? Without stakeholder support, you could have the best project in the world and it could fail. So I want to bring more of a PM's approach to the city and how it can help improve the lives of its citizens. So.
Very good. Thank you. Mr. Johnson.
Well, I'm Matt Johnson. Thank you very much. I am an incumbent. A little bit about myself. I grew up pretty much my entire life here. I grew up in Burnsville, west side of Burnsville, and went to the University of Minnesota, School of Architecture. I am an architect. Married my high school sweetheart. We built a house in Savage in '91. We raised 4 kids here, and this is definitely home. So I know what it's like to grow up in this community. I know what it's like to work from this community. And pre-pandemic, I was commuting back and forth across the Minnesota River every day. That's changed quite a bit over the last 6+ months and doesn't seem to change much going forward. And so I know the challenges in front of us. I also know some of the challenges that even raising a family is like in this community. My kids, I went to Burnsville High School. My kids all went to Burnsville High School, and that school's changed quite a bit over the years. And not positive or negative, I think it's just part of evolution. There's always change, and how do you capitalize on that and make the best of it? And so the way I approach my role at City Council is that of always learning and always looking at the evolution that our community is going through. And the things that I, as an architect, trained to do, the things I see across the country, as I do work across the country as well as across this region, helps me kind of bring some best practices, best ideas to our community. My experience as council member, as well as that in architecture, I've certainly been able to benchmark how our city's doing. And really my role has been all along is to figure out how do we stretch the city to be as best it can? How do we create this to be the best place to live? So I think one of the things, certainly the things that are very important to me in terms of putting my experience to use is understanding and developing public policy in terms of how it relates to our community and how we deal with our zoning. The role of our first responders and how they involve within our community and what that means to be a first responder and how they partner up with medical health as well as fire department, as well as kind of equitable and sustainable practices within our community, how important those are to creating a diverse community and how we grow and how all are welcome. So I'm very proud to have served the community over the last 4 years and very excited to hopefully have the chance to do it again.
Very good. Thank you, Mr. Johnson. Ms. Kelly.
Good afternoon. My name is Christine Kelly, and I have served on the Savage City Council for the last 13 years. It has been both an honor and a privilege to serve for the residents of Savage. This is, and I say it a lot, one of the most remarkable, amazing communities that I think there are. My husband and I moved here in 1995. We have raised 2 kids, and I'm so excited to have my son, who is now grown and married, who left the community, has just moved back to town. And so it's just so nice to see that next generation coming back and coming home. And the reason why I'm running is I think that we have done a really good job of making sure that we have fiscal across the board, that we are looking at all of our budget issues, and that we have been doing a really good job of making sure that our residents' taxes are reasonable and in line, and that with that money that we are providing those things that our community really needs, such as the public safety and the parks and the trails, and to make sure that our roads and our streets are plowed, and to make sure that our sewer services are working. Those are all fundamental things that are the responsibility of the city and are set by policies by the City Council. And I'm proud of those policies that we have developed and encouraged, and I look forward to representing you in the next 4 years. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Kelly. Mr. Marks.
Well, good afternoon, and thank you again for inviting us to this forum and hosting it. We really appreciate it. Again, my name is Bill Marks. A little bit about myself. I've been a resident of Savage for the last 11 years. I'm a Navy veteran, pastor, a 23-year volunteer and member of American Bikers for Awareness Training and Education, a member of the American Legion for the last 14 years. Recently, my wife and I were among the 9 who were nominated as 2020 Savage Neighbor of the Years. And I think the citizens of Savage are going to have a real challenge with their candidates this year, because I think pretty much we're all on the same page. You know, I've looked at the other candidates, and you know, being fiscally responsible, helping our police department, our firefighters, our EMT, our 911 operators is among my priorities. Granted, I'll be the first to admit I'm probably the least qualified person on this panel right now, but I have a lot to learn, and I'm willing to put in the hard work. And the reason I'm running is because my son, who has done so much in his short 35 years and now a member of the United States Space Force, which I'm very proud of, it kind of made me question myself and what am I doing in my life. So I wanted to really step it up and do what's right for the community. I love it here, and I probably will spend the rest of my life here in Savage. It's a great community. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Johnson. Excuse me, Mr. Marks.
Yes.
Pardon me, Bill. We'll progress now to the next round of questions, and since Mr. Blum started us off, we will now start off with Mr. Edvald. Evolt.
Getting there.
There's no D there, is there, except
Nope.
at the end? Evolt. Sorry, sir.
Oh, no worries.
Mr. Evolt, what, if anything, would you change about how the city government works in Savage if you became a member of the council?
Community engagement has always been important. When I was PTO president, it was making sure that, you know, we had people at the meetings, that people understood what we were doing, what we were fundraising for. I think I've been to a few council meetings, and sometimes, unless there's a hot button issue, they're pretty poorly attended. And I think whether it's meeting here in the council chambers or meeting at a park where it's a little bit more accessible to some people is something that should be looked at. You know, as far as the city reaching out, you know, I think those types of things would really help bring more transparency to the city government and have people understand how things work. You know, I hear a lot of complaints about some of the franchise vendors, cable, phone issues, and I don't think a lot of people understand exactly how that works, and that would be a good way to basically inform them of those things. So,
Very good. Thank you, sir. Same question to Mr. Johnson. What, if anything, would you change about how city government works? Always a tricky question for an incumbent.
You know, it's interesting. I think learning from the pandemic in terms of what working from home actually looks like can definitely inform how our council operates and how we can be more available to community from their home through a Zoom type approach potentially, or a call-in type approach. I think one of the fundamentals about city government is that of just the fundamental things we're charged to do in terms of roads, fire, life safety, basic park amenity. I mean, the functions are pretty straightforward. An exciting council meeting, it would be a challenge because the policy themselves is not very exciting, and you probably don't want a city government. It would be a turmoil, chaotic environment you choose to tune into. That may be another sign of issues if that's truly what's going on. But certainly my experience working from home, I think there are some opportunities. We've invested in the chambers itself in terms of how we evolve and connect to our community, how we present ourselves. So I would look forward to how we can, again, tap into the technological piece of it. And also, I think the other piece would be looking at our commission side. Is there a way to revamp those? Maybe we need to be looking a little differently in terms of the commission, types of commissions we may have. Maybe it's time for some evolution there. And again, how we utilize technology to maybe make those commissions more accessible to those that have other family commitments during those times, or maybe away and can't make a different meeting. I mean, the world's a big place. If we can get connected more with technology and give people some freedom to have that kind of flex between work-life balance, I think that's something we need to look at as a council.
Very good. Thank you, sir. Ms. Kelly, same question to you. What, if anything, would you change in the way Savage city government works?
Well, I would address the question first talking about the change. I have found sitting here that things are always in flux and changing, and that as a council we have had to approach those different topics and the different issues as things are changing. And things change with technology, and so we have issues with staff or potential growth inefficiencies with staff that we get that opportunity with new technology and challenging people that way. As Matt alluded to, the COVID-19 has really given us that opportunity to reevaluate what things we can be more efficient at, we can be more responsive with. And so my position has always been we need to be fluid, whether it's a single issue or it's a long-standing issue that's come before us and we're continuing to deal with. And I would say a good example of that is our fire station and our first responders. So we have been talking about what we were going to do with our fire model since I was on the council. So my very first year, we started talking about what changes we need to do with our fire model. And we continued to make changes and adjustments and trying to see if what those changes and adjustments were still providing us with the service that we needed. And then this summer, actually in March, when the COVID-19 came out, we made the decision to change up our fire model and see how it works, see if it was going to be something that would cover the services that we needed. And we have now made that decision that we were going to make those changes. And so to me, that's a really good example of being willing to make those changes as they come up, evaluate all of those different issues, and then make those changes as necessary.
Very good, thank you. Mr. Bill Marks, same question. How, if at all, would you change the way city government works in Savage if elected?
Well, some of the things I've heard being out and, among the constituents is that they don't feel involved enough in local government. Things like the fire station, I had no idea. And I've been watching many of the meetings online for quite a while now. But yeah, I think it's human nature for people to complain, and how we can get them over that and get them more involved in their local government, I think would be the biggest change. Everybody likes to complain about higher taxes, property taxes, and so on. But how do we get them involved, get them in the building, get them here to, hear their voices? That would be the biggest thing I'd like to see change.
Very good, thank you, sir. Same question, Mr. Blum.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's all about, listening to the residents. And I go back to engagement and not waiting for them to come to us or come to the chambers, but to reach out to them and to be proactive and to take an approach where, not where it's convenient for the city leaders or the employees, but, to go out there and to be at events and see what's on their mind, to just, listen to them. What Mr. Marks mentioned in terms of a lot of people don't know, necessarily what's going on. And it's not to their fault necessarily. Because of the somewhat limited access. I know online you can be on there as well and things like that, but I go back to this is a partnership. It's not a one-way street. Actively engaging citizens, what they want to see involved in the community. Don't make them feel like they have to come to us with their ideas. We're out there reaching out and seeing what's on your mind. So I think that's the where I'm coming from and what I see can work better from a city government level.
Very good, thank you, sir. Next question, we'll start with Ms. Kelly. Ms. Kelly.
Mr. Johnson.
Oh, I'm sorry. Did I skip Mr. Johnson? Sorry, Mr. Johnson. No,
I'll
no
go
slight,
first, but I just...
No slight intended. We are trying to go literally here. Lawyers are supposed to be linear thinkers, but I just had a little blip. Mr. Johnson, you're not invisible. Let us hear from you. Savage is almost completely built out in terms of available commercial property particularly. Given that fact, what role should City Council play in attracting new businesses or helping existing businesses expand?
Certainly, one of our tools as a council is that of promoting development. We can't develop ourselves, but we can create environments where development is encouraged, and whether it's development of green space, which we did not have much left of, or brownfield type environments, which we've done recently with the Valley Oil site. So our role is to create an environment where developers want to come. And developers want to come due to regulation and ordinance being hospitable. They want to come because there's a community they can serve. They want to come because there's businesses that they can operate within, or a workforce that makes it a great place to start a business or to sell real estate or whatever it may be. So one of our roles is to listen to the community, to understand what their desires are as part of our comprehensive plan and our Vision 2025, what's our community wanting and all that. Then listening to the development market in terms of understanding what they need to make themselves successful, and in turn making our community successful. So our role as the city council is really to continue to evolve the community and help continue to make it a great place to live. And by doing that is to have great businesses, to have great restaurants, to have great services, to have great housing options, and options I'm serious about in terms of a variety and scale of option to live within. That's what attracts people. That's what attracts other business. That's what makes development quite easy, actually, is if you have that kind of positive environment in terms of growth and strength, then people want to come and build. The more they want to come and build, the less support we have to do as a city in terms of TIF financing or any other type of partnership. But the city does need to find opportunities to partner to encourage new business and existing businesses to stay and grow. So one of those things we've done most recently is provided grants to small businesses in terms of ways to help relieve some of the pandemic threat that's been caused with their business and their concern of growth. That's probably the fundamental. And then the other is just fundamental support with like the gravel site in terms of Big Sky Estates, partnering with them to understand how do we ensure the development they're creating out of the pit they've mined is a great place to live still. And that's something they cannot do by themselves. It requires a partnering with the city, long-term vision, very long-term vision, and patience to ensure that things happen. Nothing in a city happens overnight. It takes very good focus and patience to make sure things happen correctly in the way they fit best in terms of our long-term goals and strategies.
Very good. Thank you, Mr. Johnson. Ms. Kelly, same question. Given the fact that the city's almost built out of land, what role do you see the city playing in attracting new business or expanding existing business?
So one of the things that we've been doing is looking at where that land is. Where are those opportunities for us to develop in different areas? One of those, a really good example of that is the former Valley Oil site that is downtown. And it was a site that had some contamination on it, and we had to make a decision as a council. Were we going to leave the lot as it was, which would have been sold easily and then would have been used for outdoor storage? Or were we going to do something about cleaning up the contamination on the site and really develop it? And I'm proud to say as a council, we really made that decision that we're going to clean it up and see what we could do about making that lot ready. And so we, first of all, went to look towards what kind of help, what kind of assistance, federal, state, to help us clean it up. We tried different grants, and there was nothing available. And so then again, it fell back to the city to make that decision. What were we going to do? Were we going to clean it up? And so we did, and we invested in that lot, and now we have a beautiful building there. And it's, I think, one example of what we can do to continue to redevelop and grow the different areas. I think making sure that businesses stay here in Savage is really key and important. And so we have to do what zoning and what kind of things, overlay districts, that keep the look of Savage as a bright and beautiful community, as a community that other companies want to come to. And I've been so excited to see the new businesses come, and then to see businesses that have been here forever get a chance to do something and introduce themselves to the new people who come to town. And so I think that's working with the chamber and other organizations, that's what we need to keep doing, is looking for those opportunities. As Matt said, we have to be patient and I think flexible, and looking for those opportunities when we can partner up with a business or an organization to see if we can have Savage be that place that they come to.
Very good. Bill Marks, same question. What would you do to encourage new businesses to come to town or existing businesses to expand, especially given the fact that we're short on additional development spaces?
Yeah, well, as Matt pointed out, we are in the middle of a pandemic, and quite honestly, I'm probably not up to date on how many new businesses are opening, how many businesses are willing to build. Obviously, attracting businesses and new jobs to Savage would be a priority, but how we're going to do that, quite honestly, I don't know. I'd have to educate myself some more. I do know that there are businesses closing, and trying to attract some businesses to those vacant buildings might be a priority, but attracting new businesses at this point, couldn't tell you.
Very good, thank you, sir. Mr. Blum, same question.
Yeah, I mean, I think, when it comes to attracting new businesses, I mean, I think it also starts with, is there an educated and qualified workforce to, have staff at those businesses? I've heard from some where, due to, wages that some of the businesses are paying, there aren't, enough qualified, employees around here due to housing levels and affordability of the housing. So I think, it also involves that in terms of affordable housing. You can't expect some businesses to come into the city if there is no local workforce that is willing and able to, at their wages, to be employed by that business. And I think that's a real struggle these days for a lot of businesses in terms of that. In the city specifically, retail and small business struggle with that because of the housing levels have risen so much and the cost of living in Savage, where I don't think we've done a good enough job with affordable housing to attract certain new businesses into the area. So I think that's one component that we have to focus on in the city, let alone, redeveloping, vacant lots or where there's been, people who have moved out for whatever reason. Definitely that is something we have to do, but I think it starts with, if we're going to attract new businesses, we have to make sure that there is a backbone workforce that will be local and be locally employed by those businesses.
Very good, thank you, sir. Mr. Ewald, same question.
Above all else with the pandemic is trying to keep local businesses in place and functioning. And I know the county and the city have done some things with loans and grants, and the state for that matter, which is good. But then also looking past the pandemic, what is the landscape going to look like? And that's a tricky thing. Are people going to build businesses? Are there going to be more businesses? Or are people going to start more businesses in their homes? And that's something that maybe we need to look at, the city needs to look at certain zoning regulations. And what sizes can those businesses get to the point where they're no longer considered a home business? Things like that become important. And to Mr. Bloom's point too, housing, I mean, when the average house is $350,000 in Savage, that makes the entry point into Savage very difficult for some middle and low income people. So that's something else that can be looked at. And I know there's building regulations that make it difficult for developers to build smaller first-time home buyer homes. And that's where we would need to work with the state on that as well to see how we could change those regulations and to allow a lot of smaller, even to this point where you see a lot of the mini homes now coming up. How do we make that work with the land that we have?
Very good, thank you, sir. On to the next question, and this time we'll indeed go to Ms. Kelly. Ms. Kelly, COVID-19 is on the news every night. It's on every newspaper. It's on everyone's mind. We're not the city, we are the city, we're not the state or even the county. We're certainly not the federal government. What, if anything, can the city of Savage do to assist our local businesses that are struggling due to the pandemic?
It's a great question, and I think it's one of them that most of our residents have on their mind. What can the city do? And as you mentioned, we're not the federal government and we're not the state government. But when the opportunity came for the city to get federal funding through the CARES Act, we did do that. And we took the opportunity when that money came in to see what the best use and how we could best use that money for our residents. And some of that money we have dedicated towards doing improvements and upgrades to city facilities or things for our employees so they were able to work from home. One of the things we just actually at our last meeting approved a program that's called Project Docs that would allow our residents, or not our residents, our employees to work from home, but it also is a way that our developers can work with us and not having to come in. It was one of the things that came up, that they would have to bring their plans in a hard copy of them. We didn't have a way to have them do an electronic copy. And with this new Project Docs, now they can do it electronically. They can see where the progress is, where it's at, what it's waiting for, and everybody can kind of be on that same page, whether they're allowed to come in here into the chambers, into the City Hall, or not. So I'm proud of what we've done with how we've been able to change up how we're doing business with the whole COVID-19 going on, and what we need to do to be careful. As a city council, I think we need to be aware of making sure that things are safe for our employees and our residents as they come to the community. So we've done things like we initially shut everything down according to the governor's orders, and then as we were allowed to open things up, it was thinking about how we can open things up and keep things safe and keep people safe as they're here. One of the other things that we did with the COVID-19 CARES Act money is we provided grants to local businesses, and in fact, we've done it twice. We did the first round to see what we could do for small businesses, and now we have done a second round for what we could do for small businesses and nonprofits, trying to expand that and make sure that the businesses that are here, we're doing what we can to help them get through this pandemic.
Very good. Thank you, Ms. Kelly. Mr. Marks, same question.
Well, I agree. Any kind of grants, and I've read up a little bit on the CARES Act. I saw the last meeting and the program that, I don't know if it was approved or not, but I can't remember. But yes, we're working from home and continue wearing masks. Anything we can do to keep small businesses open, especially the mom and pops. Corporate businesses, they've got their own insurance, they've got their own programs. Not real worried about them, but to keep the local businesses here in Savage and keep them open and keep them working is definitely a priority. How we do that again? CARES Act, grants, whatever we can do.
Very good. Thank you, Mr. Marks. Mr. Blum, same question. What can the city do to help local businesses that are struggling because of our pandemic?
Yeah, I think it starts with to be proactive. And frankly, not wait for the federal or state government to take action. We've seen that, approach from time to time, I think, in the city, in terms of whether it's a mask mandate or whatever it is. But I'm definitely a believer of be proactive. Don't wait for the federal or state government again to drag their feet on these issues, because it's too important. The safety of the public is too important. The safety of the businesses are too important. Working in franchising, dealing with our small businesses that are coast to coast in various states across the country. It's amazingly difficult for these small businesses in retail and service areas. And local governments really need to step up and support them in any way possible, whether that's being creative, working with local, grants, local leaders in the banking community, the finance sector. I think that's on the table. I think everything should be on the table at this point, and come up with some ideas outside the box. Don't rely on the state government. Don't rely on the federal government again to necessarily bail out our small businesses. We need to take care of them. We need to keep them safe and make sure that the residents of Savage know that if they walk into a business, they're going to be safe as they possibly can be, and that business is taking care of them. So.
Very good. Thank you, sir. Mr. Ewald, same question. How can we help the businesses struggling in the pandemic?
Thinking outside the box. That's the biggest thing. I love what the city did to allow restaurants to expand their outdoor seating. I think that was a prime example of thinking outside the box. Other areas, possibilities, business highlight days, just to draw attention to Savage businesses to the residents, because I don't think every resident realizes the depth of the business in the Savage area, and so that's something that, again, reaching out to the community and letting them know that these businesses here and exist, and they really need your help to stay in business. Shop local. Prime example is, looking at yard signs for my campaign, trying to find a local vendor. It would be nice to have that opportunity, or just making this a community involvement. Everything else they said is great, you know, let's get the state money, the Fed, the CARES Act, whatever we can, but I think we as a community of Savage need to step up together.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Johnson.
Christine, you did a great job summarizing what the city's done to date. It's a long list, and I'm proud of it. The other additional item in terms of our flexibility of ordinance was with food trucks, allow food trucks to operate within our community, really to try to capitalize on the lost state fair experience. And while it didn't really take place as we had hoped, but it certainly allowed us as a council, as a community, look like how that could be a benefit as an amenity to our community to encourage small business to operate in a little different capacity that's more innovative for them potentially in this time of hard time to get people back into the restaurant, just to give them another avenue. But more fundamental is to continue to outreach to the businesses themselves. Ask them directly, how can we help? Sometimes how we can help is best is get out of the way. In terms of regulation, what regulation is causing them heartache and heartburn, preventing them from operating in a safe way, less burdensome rate potentially. But the other big deal I think is fundamentally buying local. We're a community. How do you as a city buy local? How do you as a community continue to buy local and take part in their businesses? One idea could be even within our city community Facebook page is how do we feature a business a day, business a week, whatever it may be, to highlight what is actually in our community. Because a lot of people don't really understand the great level of amenity we actually do have here. And sometimes it just takes a little kind of wide-eyed open look in terms of, wow, this is what's going on, this is what we have. We truly have best-in-class businesses, best-in-class shops, and the way to continue to encourage them to grow is to frequent them and to take part in what they're doing and to talk to them truly as a neighbor, as a community member.
Thank you, Mr. Johnson. Would you like to pose the Chamber's question? Okay. All right, very good. I have another question. I'd like to start with Mr. Marks. Mr. Marks, I want you to put your futurist hat on now. We've talked about what is going on now. We've heard from the incumbents about what they've done in the past. But hopefully we will all be here in another decade. So, assuming that happy fact, what would you envision the city of Savage to look like in 10 years, and how would you steer it on that path as a member of the council?
Well, one of the things I've been following with the city council is getting the transit. And, you know, I don't know what it's going to take to get that done, but as a connection to the rest of the greater metropolitan area, I think it's really needs to be a priority. I mean, the fact that if you could, you know, drive to a station here in Savage and hop trains to downtown without having to drive, without having to park, I would say that would probably be the biggest thing within the next 10 years to be able to provide for the community.
Very good, sir. Thank you for that idea. Mr. Blom, same question. 10 years hence, what should the city of Savage look like?
Well, it should be a lot more diverse than it is today, both socially, economically, in my opinion. I think there's a lot of great opportunities here already, but I think there's definitely missing opportunities there. I believe that the city can be inclusive for everybody. Not just high wage earners in terms of that, not just a specific portion of the population. I think diversity would benefit us all. I also see the city being more focused on the residents themselves in terms of their focus and not to be involved in the operations of businesses itself in the city. I think that's a part of it. I think the city needs to step away from operating businesses within the city in terms of that and be focused on the community and not put the city's financial risks up into the forefront of running certain businesses within the city. So that's where I'm looking for the city to go over the next 10 years.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Ewald, same question. What do you look forward to for Savage 10 years from now?
10 years, I think we're going to start seeing the changes in the transit system. It's going to be more and more people using autonomous cars. And how does that affect infrastructure? How does that affect roads? Unfortunately, things like trains and buses might become a thing of the past. Is where, especially with the residents here, having the capability to basically either lease or buy an autonomous vehicle, and then it's going to be how does the city respond to that with infrastructure, stoplights, stop signs, things like that. I think that is going to be a real challenge for the city 10 years down the road. And how does it affect the workforce? You know, as the pandemic has shown us, working from home is quite capable. So again, is it going to be less money spent on infrastructure and more on maybe more green space or more amenities to the citizens of Savage as a whole?
Very good. Thank you, sir. Mr. Johnson, same question. 10 years from now in the city of Savage?
Yeah, certainly, without question, we'll continue on our path of equity and diversity and inclusion within our community. That's of absolute importance. One of the things that are a good tool for that is certainly mass transit, and how do we look at mass transit? And again, the city's done a great job partnering with MBTA, creating additional bus stops and ridership along those transit corridors, as well as their direct ride opportunities. But one of the fundamental things that our community is plagued with is the gag order on the Dan Patch line that prevents the conversation about what that corridor can become, whatever it could be, from a bike trail to a walking path to a bus line to a train line, you name it. All those things are options, but we are prevented by legislature to actually talk about those through this gag order. So within 10 years, that is lifted, and we'll start having those conversations about what it could be, and hopefully have some great solutions, and by then we'll have some RFPs out to make some of these things happen. Because again, city moves slow, so the more pressure we can put on it to make big change, hopefully in 10 years we'll see those big changes, but it takes active people and active representatives of our community and as of our state and local legislation to ensure that the gag order gets lifted. So here's my other plea. As you look at the other candidates at the state and national level, look at the Dan Patch line, see who's representing it, and vote on that behalf as well.
Very good, Mr. Johnson. Thank you. And Ms. Kelly, same question. Other than the gag order, what can we do to advance Savage 10 years from now?
Other than the gag order, because I have a little note here on the gag order. It's so interesting that when I first got elected to the council, that was one of the issues that I'd come across, that we were not allowed to even talk about this corridor that trains used to run on, that would be a great corridor for something, whether it's another train, whether it's a car, whether it's a bus, a foot, a bicycle. But we couldn't even talk about it. I thought, is there anything less American than letting us even talk about this issue? 13 years later, we're still sitting here saying we can't even talk about it. So in 10 years, although I will say that we are making progress. Yeah. Things move really slow, and there is actually dialogue and conversations at the state legislature about whether or not we're going to lift this. So it's moving in the right direction, that we're going to get back to America and be able to talk about it. But 10 years, that would be incredible if it actually came to fruition. But some of the things that haven't been mentioned yet, the improvements to Highway 13. We are doing a lot right now trying to see what we can do for improvements. We've got improvements scheduled for Highway 13 and Dakota Avenue. We're working on all different levels, the federal, the state government, trying to see what we can do to improve that stretch of roadway. And maybe a lot of people don't realize, but that area of Highway 13 there down by the ports of Savage is, I believe, the highest traffic hit area in the entire state of Minnesota. So when you talk about the amount of traffic that's on Highway 13, a lot of it's due to the ports of Savage, which is a great amenity for us to have, but it also means we need to do something about our resources and make sure that that transportation alley is open for them and it works for everybody. Some more things that I think in 10 years, we've talked at the scale, the Scott County Association for Leadership and Efficiency, about getting half of our residents to be working in Savage or in Scott County. And I think that would be incredible in 10 years to be able to say that half of our residents actually do work in or around Savage. So I would love to see what we could do about making that possible. But again, it's making sure that that development is there, that the lots are ready when businesses come, making sure that our zoning is set up so that we can do that, and making sure that those transportation and transit issues are being handled so that the different people who are needed for those different positions are available. There's been some conversation about a variety in housing stock. I'm actually very proud of the variety in housing stock we have done since I've been on the council. We have approved 2 workforce housing units, and I think those buildings are wonderful, and I think it has brought in a whole group of people who could not afford to live here, and I'm very proud of the fact that we have done that. I'm also proud of the fact that we've also brought in housing for assisted living, and to me, when you talk about what it's going to look like in 10 years, it's going to be that community where a family can come in, they can raise their kids, and then when mom and dad get old and they need to go somewhere, they don't have to leave Savage. They can stay here and they can go visit them at the assisted living facility. And it's the place where, you know, the new generation wants to come because this is a wonderful community. A third of the community is a green space. So, you know, I want to make sure that we maintain those things and that we keep this the community that people want to move to and want to stay in. And I also want to, you know, think about what we can do as a city to encourage new businesses. Are there things that we can do as like an incubator to promote new businesses? And the city of Savage bought the post office, and we have been using that site, and businesses have been coming in. And we also changed the bonds for downtown. So that allows businesses to come in, and we could do more to maybe be a business incubator and bring those new businesses in and encourage that in those spaces that the city owns. So in 10 years, I would like to see the city be doing some more of that.
Very good. Thank you, Ms. Kelly. And I think we all agree that we hope the First Amendment and free speech would prevail over the gag order, which I could not believe when I first heard about it as an attorney, but that's another story for another day. So we'll now come to the time where each candidate will have 2 minutes to give a summation, in which I would like you to address the voters directly as to why they should vote for you. I took a look at the sample ballot, and I prominently noticed it says, vote for 2. And I see 5 folks here, 2 of whom are incumbents vying for these 2 slots. We will have the incumbents go last, with the most senior member, I think, is Ms. Kelly going as a cleanup batter, and otherwise we will just go left to right, from my left to right. So, Mr. Edblum, why should the voters vote for you as one of the 2 candidates in this election?
Yes, well, first I want to, say, thank you to the current council members, especially Ms. Johnson here, or Mr. Johnson and Ms. Kelly, sorry, and to Mr. Abbott and Coughlin for their service over the years. Definitely I understand, the time commitment, your sacrifice for your public service, and also to the mayor, Janet Williams, I thank her as well for what she's done for the city over her years. Why you should vote for me? I'm committed to, listening more closely to everyone and the needs of people that have been, I think, overlooked for too long. We'll focus on, what unites us and not our differences. How can we make Savage a more how can we make Savage look at a more prosperous and bright future for all of us, young and old, whatever your social, economical background is, that everyone succeeds over the next 10, 20 years, whatever time frame we're looking at. That I'll be a voice for you, and I'll have an open line communication and engagement with each citizen, that whoever desires to do that, and that it's all about us as a team, and bringing your ideas to the forefront. And I think a lot of you have some great ideas, just like I think we all do here up in this chamber today for the city. A lot of you do as well. And I want those to be, made available to everyone and to be discussed. So I thank you. I greatly appreciate it and be honored to get your vote. And, hope to see you at the polls. Thank you.
Very good. Thank you, Mr. Edblum. Mr. Blum and Mr. Ewald, why should the voters vote for you as opposed to your competitors here today?
Because I want to bring a fresh perspective to the city and the city council chambers. I want to engage the citizens more. I want to make sure that they are aware of some of the things that happen in the city council chambers, as well as how the city itself is run. In every project I've run, I've very much trusted the stakeholders, trusted my team members on everything that they have done to be sure that they understand what's going on, that I understand what they see, and so that we all can come together to make everything better, to make the project, in this case, the city, a better spot. I will echo what Mr. Bloom said, and thank you for your service for 4 years and 13 years. It's not an easy task to do, but I want to participate in that service, and I think I can bring a fresh and logical approach to it.
Thank you, Mr. Ewald. The last challenger, non-incumbent, Bill Marks. Why should the voters vote for you? Why should they vote for a Navy man, for example?
Well, that's a story for another time, I think.
Very good.
And again, I would like to thank the other two council members up here, the incumbents, for their years of service. We really do appreciate it. It does take a lot of time. Granted, as I said earlier, I'm probably the least experienced person up here, and I certainly won't sit up here and make any promises to the citizens of Savage. I think a lot of us have the same visions up here for the city of Savage, have the same love for the city. I think a lot of it, I would probably just repeat myself. Mr. Bloom and Mr. I'm sorry.
Ewald. Yep.
I think we share a lot of the same conservative fiscal ideas, want to unite the community, want to be more involved, want to get them involved with us. I will promise this to the citizens of Savage, I will be as hardworking and as try and get as learned as quickly as possible. And I hope I can count on your vote, and see you in November.
Very good. Thank you, Mr. Marks. Now the incumbents. First, we'll go to Mr. Johnson. Why 4 more years, Mr. Johnson?
Yeah, well, certainly thank you for the opportunity to share my thoughts and opinions in terms of the past and looking forward. It's an exciting time on council and an exciting time going forward in front of us as well. So we have a great community, and a community that remains in a delicate balance, however, a balance that will take experience and perspective to help ensure we evolve the way that continues to be a great place to call home. A place that will continue to attract best-in-class businesses and amenities where we can live, work, and play. A community that is filled with diversity, not only in the way we look, but in the languages we use, the homes we live in, the schools our kids attend, the stores and restaurants we shop and eat at, but also the God we pray to. A livable community is a delicate balance of all these things. I'm proud of what our council has been able to get done during my term, and I look forward to serving the community on their behalf. So I really, truly appreciate your vote at the end of the month, or early next month. And again, thank you for the time, and thanks for the opportunity to serve the community.
Thank you, Mr. Johnson. Ms. Kelly, why 4 more years for you?
Well, I wanted to thank the Chamber and you, Mr. Hutchinson, for being here this afternoon, and thank the other candidates. It really does speak to what this country is when we can get 5 people who put their name in to run for the City Council for 2 positions. And I always think that's a great testament to our community and the whole process. So with that, I would just say what makes Savage great? It's not me, it's not the council, it's you folks out there. It's our residents. That truly is what makes this community amazing and unique. And nothing we do will change that. There are things that we can do to help that, however. And some of those things that we have done, I have made promises about over the years that I have been here. I promised the folks downtown we would do something about downtown, and we did. We got the roads done. Downtown looks great. It has been rejuvenated. We've done facade grants downtown to improve those business corridors. I've also promised that we would be fiscally responsible. And I can't tell you how pleased I am that on Monday night, when we got the results back in from our bond sale, we once again were awarded the AAA bond rating. That is phenomenal. And it's so great because it recognizes the hard work that our city staff has done and those policies that have been put forward by the city council. And I am, gosh, pretty dang proud of that. And along with that comes the fiscal responsibility of the interest that we're paying on those bonds is the lowest that anybody has ever seen in this community. And that's how we can keep moving forward, to make sure that we're doing things in a fiscally conservative, fiscally responsible way so that we can provide those services that we need to provide for our citizens. I'm also proud of making a community where we do have workforce housing, where we do have diversity in our community. We have, as I said, an incredible community with wonderful residents, and part of that comes into play when we create an environment that allows them to come in. It may mean that we look at our zoning code and we change things up, or we're flexible for a certain development. Maybe we make the lawns not as big so that we allow a smaller yard for the properties to be developed more economically. But we need a council who understands those laws and the regulations that are in place and what we can do to them to improve them for the residents or to take advantage of them to make this community even better. And finally, I would just like to say thank you to all of those who have entrusted me to helping run this city for the last 13 years. And I would really appreciate your vote and make sure that you go out and vote. It is very important. I think some people are forgetting how important this local election is with all of the noise about some of the other candidates who will be on the ballot. But as some people have said, I think the people sitting up here will have more impact on individual lives than what some of the other names on the ballot will have. So thank you.
Very good. Thank you, Ms. Kelly. And thank you to all the candidates for taking the time to be here this afternoon. And thank you especially to the Chamber for making this opportunity, sponsoring this opportunity for community outreach so that the community could learn more about the 5 candidates for these 2 positions. And echoing on many of the sentiments that you've mentioned, it's commercial time, and that is vote, vote, vote. Elections have consequences. Local elections have consequences. It's extremely important that we all turn out to vote, no matter what your views are. This is your opportunity in our democracy to express them. I will go into it. We have the time, so I'll tell a personal anecdote. I'm the grandson of an immigrant. My grandfather came from the state of Bohemia, which at that time was part of the Austro-Hungarian Empire. In other words, they had an emperor, not a president. You don't vote for an emperor. You don't vote for the people under the emperor. He came to this country. A few years later, he fought in World War I, turned 21 in the fields of France, came back here and voted in the 1920 election, and every election thereafter until he died. Now, he was a new American, and I think shows the finest tradition of all Americans. Get out there and vote, 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 vote. Thank you for your time this afternoon, and good afternoon.